I'm Katie Teitler, Senior Analyst with Tag Cyber, and today I'm here with Paulo Shakarian, CEO and co-founder at CYR3CON. Paulo, good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Happy to be here.
Great. Let's dive right in. So everyone in cybersecurity wants a crystal ball. They want to know which vulnerabilities adversaries will exploit and how. Some call this vulnerability management. On a larger scale, they might call it risk management. And of course, there are numerous endpoint, network, and access controls that help security and operations teams identify relevant and emerging threats. Paulo, you call CYR3CON Solutions vulnerability management technology, but it's not just an identification and prioritization tool. So why vulnerability management instead of threat intelligence or some other related term?
Well, so we like to think of our solution as being impactful to vulnerability management because we can bring threat intelligence to that team in a way they can use it. And the reason why you don't have vulnerability management teams pre-CYR3CON using threat intel solutions is because vuln management teams are already dealing with tens or hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities. They don't need another, 8,000 intel reports to also contend with. They need something that synthesizes that together and points them out to where they need to focus effort. And this is where machine learning comes in, because CYR3CON is essentially where the algorithms are in many ways reading the intelligence for the vulnerability management team, creating a prediction based on that, but not only providing the prediction, providing the source data that shows why the system thought what it did.
Okay, great. So that sort of leads to my next question. In a previous video interview with Ed, you explained what the platform is. So building on your last comments, can you explain to everyone how the platform works? Talk us through a little bit of a demo.
Yeah, so it's it's actually pretty straightforward. Since that last conversation with Ed we had the other year, we have gained a lot of feedback from our customers and users on how to adapt to their workflow. And so what you'll see in the user interface is the ability to have different kinds of dashboards where you can monitor vulnerabilities that you care about. And that can be populated by your most recent vulnerability scan. It can either be uploaded or it can directly connect to the scanner. You can also just put keywords or names of software. So as new vulnerabilities emerge, you're running that software, you could see if there's threats to it. And then right away in the dashboard, you'll see the CY rating score. That tells you how many times more likely the vulnerability is to be exploited as compared to average. 1.0 is average, so each time, so 20 is 20 times more than average. And if you want to see the intelligence that goes along with it, you just click on the CVE number and you see that. We also have a lot of the standard metadata available to the vulnerability, including things like available patches and workaround link. So as teams see this information, they are alerted to it and they can take action as vulnerabilities they may have had lower on their priority list for remediation suddenly become the object of desire for a hacker.
So that's really interesting. It sounds pretty simple, but it also brings something else to mind. How is your risk rating system, the CY rating that you just mentioned, different than the CVSS?
It's quite different. CVSS is really designed to give sort of the opinion of MITRE and the NVD team as to how risky a vulnerability is. And when you look at the universe of vulnerabilities, roughly 50 to 60% of them have a higher critical CVSS rating. Yet at the same time, it's about 3% of vulnerabilities are being actually exploited by hackers. So clearly, CVSS isn't designed to be predictive. And when you're dealing with 100,000 vulnerabilities, you're not even going to get through 50 to 60% of those in a timely fashion, especially when you got hackers who are going to launch an attack, within the next week. CYR3CON's CYR rating score is based on the likelihood of threat, the likelihood that a threat actor is going to weaponize that vulnerability and exploit it in the wild. So you can direct your actions to be more against the hacker as opposed to a standard that's based on, use for things like compliance or, just kind of getting a general feeling for things.
So it's a prediction system or an early warning system, so to speak.
Yes, that is exactly correct. And that's really what, we wanted to bring to our customers, was the ability to get ahead of hackers. Because when you think about it, all of the security solutions out there, even things as old as the firewall, they're all way more complicated than simply upgrading and patching systems. If you upgrade and patch a system and block off that part of the attack surface, the attacker simply can't launch that exploit anymore. And one way to move to that kind of stance is to understand what the bad guys are doing, and that's where we come in.
So what kind of companies use this? Are they companies with a giant SOC team or threat analysts? Do they have to be a pretty mature and sophisticated cybersecurity organization?
So what we're seeing is today, a lot of our customers are in the financial sector, and we also have a lot of large enterprises that have, say, 5,000 endpoints or more in their environment. That said, we have engaged with some mid-market and smaller clients and provided value. So for example, there's a law firm that's a client of ours, doesn't have very many endpoints at all, a very small firm. And there was a router in their environment that they found that not only had vulnerabilities that they were aware of, but also that those vulnerabilities were actively being exploited. And this directly led this very small law firm to replace that router, and which simply reduced the threat to them and also their clients' data. So I think even though we haven't been aggressively pursuing the lower end of the market, I think there is a use case there as well.
Oh, for sure. Any company can be attacked. Any company can be the conduit to an attack. So it's something that all companies should be thinking about. Maybe not all companies can buy all the technology in the world, but it's important to get out in front of the threat as quickly as you can.
No,
so let me take this up a level here. So we talked about your technology a little bit. We talked about some of the things that you're doing at the company, but let's abstract away. What are some of the things enterprises get wrong about vulnerability management? In other words, with all of the available technologies on the market, why are some attacks still getting through? Why do people still get hit?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think that there are multiple ways things can go wrong with vulnerability management. When we talk to clients about their overall vuln management program, and as a company, we've gained a lot of insights because we talk to these vuln management teams and we talk to them about our solution. We say, well, how exactly is this fitting into what you're doing? And really, there's kind of three major pieces to vuln management. It's the scanning, the prioritization and analysis, and then communicating the results to the system or application owners. And we see that the teams that tend to get it right, they're using multiple scanners. They're not using, sure, they'll use an IT scanner like Qualys or Rapid7, but they'll also use specialty scanners. Maybe they're using Security Scorecard for external assets. Maybe they're using Onapsis for their SAP database. Maybe they got something for OT. And by having multiple scanners, they're getting visibility of more of their threat surface. Then in the prioritization piece, I think the single biggest thing that we've seen customers lack is the ability to integrate intelligence into the prioritization. We see a lot of reliance on CVSS scoring, and actually, quite frankly, a lot of frustration with it. Some companies are augmenting it with simple things like, if there's a Metasploit module out there, we're going to patch. And I wholeheartedly agree to that. But Metasploit is there are dangerous vulnerabilities where there's Metasploit modules, but that's still a very small fraction of what's actually exploited. And certainly by the time there's something with a Metasploit module, that means that everyone already has been messing with the thing for months.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is the communication typically to IT or application owners. And we see a failure here where a lot of times security guys will talk to IT and they don't do a good enough job of convincing IT to patch or remediate by their priorities. And the IT guys is patching applications and fixing, up the systems for reasons other than security. So as a security guy, you have to accept that you're competing with other priorities on upgrades and patching. When you can communicate to the guy doing patch management that there is an actualized threat against this vulnerability, and someone in China was talking about it last week and is preparing an exploit, when we saw our customers start doing that to their IT guys, they said that there was a definite increase in the responsiveness of IT to security needs.
So you're also helping tackle one of the age-old problems, which is bridging IT and security, reducing some of that internal friction.
Yeah, and what you really got to understand is that the costs associated with these IT actions tend to dwarf what is being spent in security. The actions of upgrading and patching, companies spend millions of dollars on this a year. And when you look at the costs of vulnerability management, they're much smaller by comparison. So if vuln management can do a better job making the patch management guys more efficient, they were going to work better as a team.
It's a win-win. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, Paulo, thank you so much for speaking with us. This has been a really great conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get in touch with us is to visit our website at CYR3CON.ai, CYR3CON.ai. And I would say take a look at what we called our Find Ignored Threats or FIT assessment. And this is a way where we can take a look at your vulnerabilities and tell you where there are threats that you might not be aware of so you can take action. And we do this to try to introduce you to our platform and subscription services.
That sounds easy enough. Well, Paulo, again, thank you so much. And for everybody watching, thank you. And we'll talk to you next time.